Hi, I'm going to talk a little bit about water quality and its connections with mineral nutrition and fertilization. The motivation of this comes from the reality in Israel where water is very scarce and water available for irrigation tends to be non-conventional. And the meaning of that non-conventional is that more than half of our water is recycled municipal wastewater and brackish groundwater. Those waters are higher in minerals and contaminants and include high levels of salts. And even our fresh water, which is the rest of the water that we have for irrigation, more and more is desalinated seawater, and that water is particularly low in salts and low in nutrients. So we're very interested in salinity. Now, the water quality plant nutrition issues are far-reaching, and they include effects on soils, consideration of nutrients in fertilization schemes, competition between ions and uptake in physiological processes. And what I'm going to be talking about today, uptake and leaching requirements, the other topics, some of which have been dealt with in some recent publications about olives and vegetables, you're welcome to pursue. So salinity and irrigation water. In Israel, our brackish groundwater is found in our most extreme arid conditions, and it's our highest salinity water. And we're successfully growing crops like dates and olives and bell peppers with very, very high salinity irrigation water. And like we said, the rest of our water in the country, about half of it is recycled municipal wastewater, and that water is salty as well. So we're dealing with a lot of salts. And in the end, what it means is that as we're giving our crops the water they need, we're also adding tons of salts per hectare per year to our soils. The actual amount depends, of course, on what crop and how long the season it is and how salty the water it is and what the weather's like. But essentially that's what's done. Now, when we irrigate, we're interested in supplying evapotranspiration needs and not supplying anything else that's wasted. But when there's salts in the water that we're irrigating, those salts come with the water to the roots. The water's taken up and flows through the plant and is transpired for the most part. And the salts, for the most part, accumulate at the root surfaces. And those salts cause us problems. They cause us problems osmotically. They cause problems to the plant, eventually toxically, both at the root level and as some of them do enter the plant itself and get to more sensitive organs. So in order to deal with those salts or to minimize the effects of them and to allow agriculture, irrigated agriculture with salty water, we need to leach them out. So if there's not natural leaching, the irrigator is faced with needing to supply more irrigation water for some of that water just to move the salts out of the root zone. How much leaching do we need to do? How do we know? We have a couple tools to do that. One is experimental tools. For example, the weighing drainage lysimeters that we see here for various horticultural crops that we're experimenting on in Israel. These allow two things. First, the isolation of the variables we're interested in, particularly the irrigation water salinity and amount, the leaching amount, but also allows to close water and solute balances. So we know how much evapotranspiration there was, and we know how much movement of water and solutes to beyond the root zone there is. Our other tool is modeling. And so we want to mathematically simulate crop response based on soil physical properties and our understanding of plant response. And we're therefore looking for and developing models that are accessible with easy inputs and give us useful outputs. Results of both of these can look like this. So this is fruit yield as a function of seasonal irrigation water for a pepper crop in a net house in the desert in the Arava Valley, 2 irrigation water salinities. We see that for good quality water or better quality water, we get a response with the water until about the evapotranspiration needs. and then no response after that. But for lower quality water with higher salinity, we see added benefit of additional water beyond the same amount that actually has a reduced yield of about 20% compared to the maximal yield for the good quality water. We were able to reach those yields, but at the expense of twice the amount of water. So half the water here went to leaching salts and not to evapotranspiration. I'm concerned about that leachate. Where is that water? So that water is getting to deeper soils and is getting to our groundwater. And here we see some evidence from a well that's downstream hydrologically from intensive vegetable growing area in this desert where these peppers are grown. And we see over 25 years that the salinity of the water in this well goes up about 2.5 times. And much more concerning and much more important to us is that the nitrates in that water went up 4 times in the same time period. And the nitrogen for those nitrates is all the source of it is all fertigation of these vegetables. So not only can agricultural chemicals be mobilized and then contaminate our deep soils and groundwaters, but we also see in dry areas mobilization of natural contaminants like boron and selenium often in these kind of areas that wouldn't otherwise be mobilized, that when we start leaching at high levels, we see them happening. This makes us concerned about the sustainability of this practice of strategy of using poor quality water and needing to leach in general. And it has led us to a bunch of questions about whether desalination can be used as a way to handle this and take care of the salinity at the source and not need to leach so much. So the other tools we talked about were modeling tools. This is an example of a analytical mechanistic model based on soil physical properties and our understanding of biology and plant response that's fairly accessible. It's actually pretty easy to run. There's not that many input variables. We need parameters for irrigation water quantity and quality. That's usually what we're interested in looking at anyway. We need some crop parameters about their relative response to water and salinity, and we need some physical parameters, mostly regarding soil hydraulic properties, but also climate demand term. And then we've built this into a application that we call ANSWER for analytical soil water, based on this model that we've coupled with economics to try to make it useful for growers. So it's in Hebrew or English, and it's set up really for the Israeli situation. You'll see, because the economics work for that. But anyone can come in. It's web-based. You're welcome to come and visit it. There's a library of crops that we have confidence in, and soils that we know the parameterization for. But a user can go into any parameter and change it according to what he knows the situation is, he or she knows the situation is for his particular crop and soil and location. And then the application solves for a matrix of irrigation amounts and irrigation water qualities. So essentially we get water production curves. So low salinity, highest salinity, this is EC5, and this is EC 0.5 for a bell pepper crop in the Arava. And we can use then the model fairly easily. Now, people don't make decisions based on models and yield response curves, unfortunately or fortunately. They make decisions based more on money and economics. In Israel, the cost of water is graduated, where water costs more when it's better quality and less when it's more salty. And so with real water economics and with real terms of economics of the farm and the crop, we can then solve for profit. So now we're seeing profit as a function of the irrigation amount, and for different irrigation water salinities, the solutions sometimes show an optimal amount or a optimal amount for maximizing profits.
Sometimes this isn't trivial. What the tool really does is allow a grower to say, hey, I can get a higher yield than that. How sensitive am I to yield? But I think maybe the price in the market is going to go down this year. What's going to happen to my profit when that happens? Or maybe the price will go up this year, and therefore I'll be able to make more profit. But I don't have water that's this quality. My water quality is this, and it would cost me maybe $1 or more to desalinate this water. Can I justify that cost? And maybe for peppers I can. And then I see users, both growers and planters, also using the tool to say, well, what if I grew dates instead of peppers, for example? Dates are much less sensitive to salts. Dates are also much more profitable, so getting high profits, but they're also very sensitive to the cost of water. So in this case, if the farmer had high salinity water and wanted to desalinate it for the same price, we see that probably he would decide not to make that decision. So just examples of tools that we have. We've used this to do some analysis of feasibility of desalination for agriculture. We're seeing people using it for decision making. So to come home with this, water quality and nutrition actually have lots of things I didn't have time to talk about that are interesting and important. Utilization of water high in salts comes with a high cost, lots of high costs actually, and we need to leach the salts, and it's completely become clear it's not actually always sustainable. We do have some tools to help us make decisions and to be smarter around these issues. We need more. If any of you would be interested in coupling your economics for other than Israel to the application, I'd be very interested in pursuing those kind of things. And desalination is becoming more and more interesting in dry areas as an alternative for leveraging sustainable irrigation in those areas. This is me. This is the application. You're much invited to visit it and to contact me. And thank you very much for your attention.